Your liver is performing over 500 different chemical reactions right now. Not over the course of a day or a week, but in this exact moment as you're watching this video. It's filtering toxins from your bloodstream, producing bile to digest fats, storing glucose for energy, synthesizing proteins your blood needs to clot properly, and metabolizing every medication or supplement you've taken in the last few hours. It's doing all of this silently without any conscious input from you, and it will keep doing it until it can't anymore. The problem is that your liver doesn't send warning signals until it's already in serious trouble. There's no pain receptor in liver tissue, no early alarm system that tells you something's wrong. By the time you notice symptoms, fatigue, abdominal swelling, yellowing skin, your liver function has often declined by 70 or 80%. And here's what most people don't know. The majority of liver disease in developed countries isn't caused by alcohol anymore. It's caused by things that most people think are completely harmless. Medications your doctor prescribed, foods that are marketed as healthy, supplements you bought because you thought they'd help, and everyday habits that are slowly, quietly overwhelming your liver's capacity to keep up. The scary part is that non-alcoholic fatty liver disease now affects about 1 in 4 adults in the UK, the US and Australia, and most of them have no idea they have it. But there are 7 specific things that are doing the most damage, and if you understand what they are and why they matter, you can actually reverse a lot of this before permanent damage sets in. That's what we need to talk about. Hi, I'm Dr. Alex. I'm an emergency medicine doctor, and after nearly 10 years working in the AAN, I've seen what end-stage liver disease looks like up close. Liver failure from cirrhosis, hepatic encephalopathy, where the brain stops working properly because the liver can't clear toxins anymore, variceal bleeding that can be fatal within minutes. These are devastating conditions, and what's heartbreaking is that many of them were preventable if someone had understood what was damaging their liver decades earlier. My goal now is to help people avoid those outcomes by giving them the information they need to protect their liver health while they still can. Now, I know that's a serious claim, and you might be wondering whether this channel is worth your time. So let me make you a promise. I promise to keep creating the most helpful videos I possibly can, grounded in the latest research and clinical evidence, to help you understand what's actually happening in your body and how to protect your long-term health. I'm not here to sell you supplements or liver cleanses or detox programs. I'm here to give you real information based on what the science actually shows, not what's profitable to market. All I ask in return is that you give this fairly new channel a chance and hit the subscribe button. If you get to the end of this video and you don't think it was worth your time, or you haven't learned something genuinely useful, then feel free to unsubscribe. No hard feelings whatsoever, but if you give me your time and attention, I'll give you everything I've learned from over a decade in medicine. So please help me out. Hit that subscribe button to help this channel reach more people like you, and let's continue with the video. Before we talk about what damages your liver, we need to understand what your liver actually does, because most people drastically underestimate how critical this organ is. Your liver weighs about 1.5 kilograms, and it processes approximately 1.4 liters of blood every single minute. That's about a quarter of your entire cardiac output flowing through your liver constantly. Every substance you eat, drink, or absorb through your skin eventually ends up in your bloodstream, and all of that blood passes through your liver before it goes anywhere else. Your liver acts as your body's primary filtration and processing plant. It detoxifies harmful substances, converts them into forms that can be safely excreted, and decides what gets stored, what gets used immediately, and what gets sent back into circulation. When you eat carbohydrates, your liver converts excess glucose into glycogen for storage. When your blood sugar drops, it converts that glycogen back into glucose to maintain stable energy levels. When you eat protein, your liver processes the nitrogen waste into urea so your kidneys can excrete it. When you eat fat, your liver produces bile to emulsify it so your intestines can absorb it. It also synthesizes cholesterol, which despite its reputation is essential for producing hormones, vitamin D, and maintaining cell membrane integrity. Your liver produces albumin, the protein that keeps fluid in your bloodstream rather than leaking into your tissues. It produces clotting factors that prevent you from bleeding to death from minor injuries. And it stores vitamins A, D, E, K, and B12 for when your body needs them. The liver's detoxification process happens in two phases. Phase 1 involves enzymes called cytochrome P450 enzymes that break down fat-soluble toxins into intermediate compounds. Those intermediates are actually more toxic than the original substance, which is why phase 2 is critical. Phase 2 involves conjugation, where the liver attaches molecules like glutathione, sulfate, or glucuronic acid to those toxic intermediates to make them water-soluble so they can be excreted through urine or bile. This is an elegant system, but it depends on having adequate supplies of the nutrients needed for both phases, adequate energy reserves to fuel the chemical reactions, and most importantly, not being overwhelmed by the volume of toxins coming in. When the system gets overloaded, those intermediate compounds from phase 1 start accumulating because phase 2 can't keep up. That creates oxidative stress and inflammation in liver tissue, and over time, that inflammation leads to fibrosis, which is scarring, and eventually cirrhosis, which is irreversible scarring that destroys liver function. Here's what makes liver damage so insidious. Your liver has extraordinary regenerative capacity. You can surgically remove 70% of someone's liver, and it will grow back to full size within a few months. But that regenerative capacity only works if the damage is acute and then stops. When damage is chronic, when the liver is being injured day after day, year after year, the regeneration process itself becomes part of the problem. Scar tissue accumulates faster than healthy tissue can regenerate, and once you cross a certain threshold of fibrosis, the process becomes self-perpetuating. Scar tissue interferes with blood flow through the liver, which creates more inflammation, which creates more scarring. And throughout most of this process, you feel absolutely nothing. Blood tests might show mildly elevated liver enzymes, but those numbers don't become alarming until the damage is already significant. This is why prevention matters so much. By the time symptoms appear, your options become much more limited. Now, let's talk about the 7 non-alcoholic things that are slowly destroying your liver. The first is fructose, and I'm not talking about the small amounts in whole fruit. I'm talking about added sugars, and particularly high fructose corn syrup that's in everything from soft drinks to breakfast cereals to flavoured yogurt to pasta sauce. Fructose is metabolized almost entirely in the liver, and unlike glucose, which can be used by every cell in your body, fructose must be processed by hepatocytes, which are your liver cells. When you consume large amounts of fructose, particularly in liquid form where it hits your liver very quickly, it overwhelms the liver's capacity to process it safely. The liver starts converting that fructose into fat through a process called de novo lipogenesis. That fat accumulates in liver cells, creating what's called hepatic steatosis, or fatty liver. Now, a little bit of fat in your liver isn't necessarily a problem. But when fat accumulation exceeds about 5 to 10% of liver weight, it starts interfering with normal liver function. The fat-laden hepatocytes become insulin resistant, which makes the problem worse because insulin resistance drives even more fat storage. Inflammation develops, and that inflammation triggers the fibrosis process. Research published in the Journal of Hepatology has shown that people who consume more than 50 grams of fructose per day, which is about what you'd get from 2 cans of soft drink, have significantly higher rates of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease compared to people who consume less. And it's not just soft drinks. Fruit juice, even fresh squeezed juice, delivers a massive fructose load without the fibre that would slow its absorption. Agave syrup, which is marketed as a healthy alternative to sugar, is actually about 80% fructose, higher than high fructose corn syrup. The second thing destroying your liver is excess body fat, particularly visceral fat, which is the fat stored around your abdominal organs. Visceral fat isn't just passive storage, it's metabolically active tissue that secretes inflammatory compounds called adipocaines. When you have excess visceral fat, those inflammatory signals are constantly circulating through your bloodstream, and your liver is on the receiving end of that inflammation. Visceral fat also contributes to insulin resistance, which, as I mentioned, drives fat accumulation in the liver. Studies have shown that people with a body mass index over 30, which is classified as obese, have about a 75% chance of having fatty liver disease, and about 20 to 25% of them will progress to non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, which is fatty liver with significant inflammation. That's the stage where serious liver damage starts accelerating. The relationship between obesity and liver disease is so strong that weight loss is one of the most effective treatments for fatty liver. Research shows that losing just 7 to 10% of body weight can significantly reduce liver fat and inflammation, and losing more than 10% can actually reverse fibrosis in some cases. But the key is sustainable weight loss with muscle preservation, not crash dieting, which can actually worsen liver inflammation temporarily. The third threat is certain medications, and this is where people get caught off guard because they're taking medications that their doctor prescribed. Paracetamol, which is acetaminophen in the US, is one of the most hepatotoxic drugs in common use. At therapeutic doses, paracetamol is generally safe for most people, but the margin between a therapeutic dose and a toxic dose is narrower than most people realize. The recommended maximum daily dose for adults is 4 grams, which is 8 500 milligram tablets. But people often don't realize that paracetamol is in dozens of over-the-counter products. Cold and flu medications, sinus tablets, sleep aids, combination pain relievers. It's easy to accidentally take twice the recommended dose if you're combining multiple products. And if you're taking paracetamol daily for chronic pain, even at recommended doses, and you're also drinking alcohol, or you have existing liver disease, or you're taking other medications that compete for the same detoxification pathways, you can develop hepatotoxicity. Paracetamol overdose is the leading cause of acute liver failure in the UK, US, and Australia, and a significant portion of those cases are unintentional. Other medications that can cause liver damage include certain statins, which are cholesterol medications, some antibiotics, particularly amoxicillin clavulanic acid, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen and naproxen when used chronically, and some medications used for diabetes, blood pressure, and psychiatric conditions. This doesn't mean these medications are bad or shouldn't be used. It means they need to be used appropriately at the right dose for the right duration, with awareness that your liver is processing them. If you're on multiple medications long-term, your doctor should be monitoring your liver function with regular blood tests. The fourth thing is herbal supplements and vitamins, which is ironic because people take them thinking they're supporting their health. The supplement industry is largely unregulated, which means the quality, purity, and actual content of supplements can vary wildly between brands and even between batches. Some supplements are contaminated with heavy metals, pesticides, or undeclared pharmaceutical ingredients. Others contain herbs that have direct hepatotoxic effects. Green tea extract, which is in dozens of weight loss supplements, has been linked to acute liver injury when taken in concentrated doses. Kava, which is used for anxiety, can cause severe hepatotoxicity. Certain bodybuilding supplements, particularly those marketed for muscle gain or fat loss, have been linked to liver damage. And even high doses of certain vitamins can be problematic. Vitamin A is stored in the liver, and chronic high doses can cause hypervitaminosis A, which damages liver cells. The same is true for iron supplements. Your liver stores excess iron, and iron overload creates oxidative stress that accelerates liver fibrosis. There are case reports in the medical literature of people developing acute liver failure from herbal supplements that were marketed as liver detox or liver support products. The irony is brutal. If you're taking supplements, particularly multiple supplements or high-dose formulations, you should be having your liver function checked regularly. And if you develop unexplained fatigue, nausea, or abdominal discomfort after starting a new supplement, stop taking it and get your liver enzymes checked. The fifth threat is industrial seed oils and trans fats. Trans fats have been banned or restricted in many countries, but they're still present in some processed foods. They're created when liquid vegetable oils are partially hydrogenated to make them solid at room temperature, which improves shelf life and texture. Trans fats are directly toxic to liver cells and promote inflammation and insulin resistance. But even without trans fats, the excessive consumption of omega-6 polyunsaturated fats from industrial seed oils like soybean oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, and cottonseed oil can contribute to liver inflammation. These oils are in nearly all processed and restaurant foods because they're cheap and stable at high temperatures. The problem is that omega-6 fats are metabolized into pro-inflammatory compounds, and when your omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is heavily skewed toward omega-6, which it is in most modern diets, You end up with chronic low-grade inflammation throughout your body, including your liver. Studies have shown that replacing industrial seed oils with more stable fats like olive oil, avocado oil, or even butter can reduce markers of liver inflammation. This doesn't mean fat is bad. Your liver needs fat to function properly. It means the type of fat matters, and the inflammatory load from oxidized omega-6 fats is contributing to the epidemic of fatty liver disease. Okay, so if you're watching this video, you're probably concerned about your liver health, and you're looking for real answers based on evidence, not marketing. I just want to take a few seconds here to remind you that I promise to keep creating the most helpful videos I possibly can, grounded in science and the latest research, to help you live longer and avoid the preventable diseases I see in the emergency department every day. All I ask in return is that you give this channel a chance and hit the subscribe button to help me reach more people like you. If you get to the end and didn't think it was worth your time, feel free to unsubscribe. But if you give me your attention, I'll give you everything I've learned from over a decade in medicine. So please help me out and hit that subscribe button. Let's continue with the video. The sixth thing, slowly destroying your liver, is chronic sleep deprivation. Most people don't connect sleep to liver health, but the research is clear. Your liver has a circadian rhythm, and many of its detoxification and metabolic processes are synchronized to your sleep-wake cycle. During sleep, particularly during deep sleep, your liver ramps up its detoxification activity, repairs damaged cells, and synthesizes proteins and glycogen. When you're chronically sleep deprived, sleeping less than 6 hours per night on a regular basis, several things go wrong. First, your liver's circadian rhythm gets disrupted, which impairs its ability to properly time metabolic processes. Second, sleep deprivation increases cortisol and inflammatory markers, which puts additional stress on your liver. Third, lack of sleep worsens insulin resistance, which, as we've discussed, drives fat accumulation in the liver. And fourth, sleep deprivation increases appetite and cravings for high-calorie foods, which means you end up consuming more fructose and inflammatory fats, which further burdens your liver. Studies published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism have shown that people who consistently sleep less than 6 hours per night have significantly higher rates of fatty liver disease compared to people who sleep 7 to 9 hours, even after controlling for body weight and diet. And shift workers whose circadian rhythms are chronically disrupted have even higher rates of liver disease. The liver is working hardest while you sleep, and if you're not giving it adequate time to do that work, you're essentially forcing it to operate at reduced capacity day after day. The seventh and final thing destroying your liver is environmental toxins, and this is the one that's hardest to control, because these exposures are often invisible and unavoidable. We're talking about things like pesticides on conventionally grown produce, plasticizers like BPA and phthalates that leach from food packaging, heavy metals like lead, mercury, and cadmium from contaminated water or food, air pollution from vehicle exhaust and industrial emissions, and chemicals in household cleaning products, personal care products, and flame retardants in furniture. Every one of these substances has to be processed by your liver, and many of them are difficult to detoxify. They accumulate in liver tissue over years and decades, creating a persistent toxic load that contributes to inflammation and oxidative stress. The research on this is sobering. Studies have found associations between high levels of pesticide exposure and increased rates of liver disease. People with higher blood levels of persistent organic pollutants have worse liver function markers. Workers in industries with high chemical exposures have elevated rates of liver disease. Now, you can't eliminate all environmental toxins, but you can reduce your exposure by choosing organic produce for the foods that tend to have the highest pesticide residues, filtering your drinking water, avoiding plastic containers for hot food and drinks, using glass or stainless steel instead, minimizing use of synthetic fragrances and harsh cleaning chemicals, and ensuring good ventilation in your home to reduce indoor air pollution. Every reduction in toxic load is one less burden on your liver's detoxification systems. So now that you understand what's damaging your liver, let's talk about what you can actually do about it. The first and most important step is to reduce fructose intake dramatically, particularly from liquid sources. That means eliminating soft drinks, fruit juice, and energy drinks almost entirely. If you're drinking 2 cans of soft drink per day, you're giving your liver about 80 grams of fructose to process, and that alone can drive fatty liver disease within months. Replace those drinks with water, sparkling water, coffee, or tea. When you do eat fruit, choose whole fruit rather than juice, and focus on lower fructose options like berries, which have more fiber and less fructose per serving than tropical fruits like mango or pineapple. Read ingredient labels and avoid products with high fructose corn syrup, agave syrup, or more than 10 grams of added sugar per serving. This single change, reducing fructose intake, can start reversing fatty liver within weeks. Studies have shown measurable reductions in liver fat after just 2 to 3 weeks of cutting out added sugars. The second step is to lose excess body fat if you're carrying it, particularly around your midsection. As I mentioned earlier, losing 7 to 10% of body weight can significantly reduce liver fat and inflammation. But how you lose that weight matters. Crash diets or very low-calorie diets can actually cause a temporary worsening of liver inflammation because rapid fat breakdown floods your liver with fatty acids all at once. The better approach is gradual weight loss of about 0.5 to 1% of body weight per week, achieved through a combination of moderate calorie restriction, high protein intake to preserve muscle mass, and resistance training to maintain metabolic rate. The goal isn't just to weigh less, it's to reduce visceral fat specifically, and to improve insulin sensitivity, both of which directly benefit your liver. The third step is to support your liver's detoxification pathways nutritionally. That means ensuring adequate intake of the nutrients required for phase 2 detoxification. Cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and cabbage contain compounds that upregulate phase 2 enzymes. Garlic and onions provide sulfur compounds needed for conjugation. Foods rich in antioxidants, particularly vitamin C, vitamin E, and selenium, help protect liver cells from oxidative damage during detoxification. And adequate protein intake provides the amino acids needed to synthesize glutathione, which is your liver's most important antioxidant and detoxification molecule. If you're eating a diet rich in vegetables, particularly cruciferous vegetables, with adequate protein from fish, eggs, and meat, and including some nuts and seeds for selenium and vitamin E, you're providing your liver with the tools it needs to detoxify efficiently. The fourth step is to be extremely cautious with medications and supplements. If you're taking paracetamol regularly for chronic pain, talk to your doctor about alternatives or strategies to reduce the dose. If you're on multiple prescription medications, ask your doctor if all of them are still necessary and whether your liver function should be monitored. And be very skeptical of supplements, particularly herbal supplements, weight loss supplements, and high-dose vitamins, unless you have a clear deficiency documented by blood work. The supplement industry is full of products that promise to detox or cleanse or support your liver. And ironically, many of them contain ingredients that can damage your liver. Your liver doesn't need a detox, it is the detox system. What it needs is to not be overwhelmed by unnecessary substances it has to process. The fifth step is to prioritize sleep. Aim for 7 to 9 hours per night consistently, and if you're a shift worker or have a schedule that makes that difficult, try to maintain as consistent a sleep schedule as possible, even on days off. Create a dark, cool sleeping environment. Avoid screens for an hour before bed. And if you have undiagnosed sleep apnea, which is common in people who are overweight and is strongly associated with fatty liver disease, get evaluated and treated. Continuous positive airway pressure therapy for sleep apnea has been shown to improve liver function markers in people with fatty liver disease. Your liver does some of its most important work while you sleep, and chronic sleep deprivation is sabotaging that process. The sixth step is to exercise regularly, and particularly to include resistance training. Exercise improves insulin sensitivity, which reduces fat accumulation in the liver. It promotes fat oxidation, which helps reduce existing liver fat. And it reduces systemic inflammation. Studies have shown that people who exercise regularly have lower rates of fatty liver disease regardless of body weight. You don't need to become a marathon runner. 3 to 4 sessions per week of moderate intensity exercise, including both aerobic activity and resistance training, is enough to produce measurable improvements in liver health. And if you already have fatty liver disease, exercise is one of the most effective interventions for reversing it. And finally, the seventh step is to minimize your exposure to environmental toxins, where practical, buy organic versions of the foods that tend to have the highest pesticide residues, sometimes called the dirty dozen. Filter your tap water or drink filtered water. Avoid heating food in plastic containers, and don't microwave food in plastic. Use glass, stainless steel, or ceramic instead. Choose personal care products and cleaning products that don't contain synthetic fragrances or harsh chemicals. And ensure adequate ventilation in your home, particularly if you live in an area with high air pollution. None of these steps will eliminate your toxic exposure entirely, but they will reduce the cumulative load on your liver's detoxification systems. Now, I need to be clear about something important. If you already have known liver disease, if your doctor has told you that you have fatty liver, elevated liver enzymes, or any form of hepatitis or cirrhosis, these recommendations are not a substitute for medical treatment. You need to be under the care of a physician, preferably a hepatologist, who can monitor your liver function and prescribe appropriate treatment. What I'm giving you here is information about how to protect your liver and potentially reverse early damage before it becomes irreversible. But if you're already past that point, you need medical supervision. The good news is that even people with significant fatty liver disease or early fibrosis can often reverse the damage if they make comprehensive lifestyle changes. But that needs to be done in coordination with your medical team. In emergency medicine, I see the end stage of liver disease regularly, and it's one of the most difficult things to witness. I see people in their 50s and 60s with massive ascites, which is fluid accumulation in the abdomen that makes them look 9 months pregnant.